No one noticed the janitor at first. He was just another quiet man pushing a cleaning cart down a glossy hallway, his shoulders slightly hunched from years of hard work. But in one unexpected moment, he would do something so shocking, so brave, that it would change his life and the life of a powerful CEO forever. What made a single dad janitor cover a billionaire's mouth and whisper, "Don't go inside"? And why did that single act of kindness and courage leave an entire company in tears? Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional, real-life inspired stories that restore your faith in humanity, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. You're watching Stories That Matter on your channel name, where kindness always finds its way home. The janitor's name was Daniel Carter. He was 38 years old with tired eyes and rough hands that told the story of a man who had never been given anything easily. Every morning at 5 a.m., Daniel walked into the towering glass office building in downtown Chicago wearing the same faded blue uniform. He worked quietly, never complained, and always stayed invisible. Daniel was a single father. His world revolved around his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. After his wife passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier, Daniel became everything to Lily, her dad, her comfort, her safety. He worked nights and early mornings so he could be home when she woke up and there when she fell asleep. This janitor job wasn't his dream, but it paid the bills and gave him health insurance. And for Daniel, that was enough. The building he cleaned belonged to one of the largest tech companies in the country. Its CEO, Richard Hale, was a name everyone knew. He was wealthy, powerful, and respected. But to Daniel, he was just another man in a suit who walked fast and never made eye contact. Until that morning. Richard Hale arrived unusually early. He looked distracted, even irritated, tapping on his phone as he headed toward a private conference room on the executive floor. That room was usually empty at that hour. Daniel froze when he saw where Richard was going. His heart began to race. Just minutes earlier, Daniel had been cleaning near that very room. While emptying trash, he overheard something that didn't sit right. Two maintenance contractors, men Daniel had never seen before, were whispering angrily inside the room. One of them mentioned faulty wiring. The other laughed and said, "Not our problem if someone goes in early." Daniel didn't fully understand the technical details, but he understood danger. He had smelled something odd too, like overheated metal. He reported it immediately to building maintenance, but no one answered. It was too early. The office was barely awake, and now the CEO was about to walk right in. Without thinking about his job, without thinking about consequences, Daniel rushed forward. He dropped his cart and grabbed Richard from behind, covering his mouth with one hand and pulling him back with the other. "Don't go inside," Daniel whispered urgently. "Please, it's not safe." Richard struggled in shock, his eyes wide with anger. "What are you doing?" he snapped once Daniel released him. "Are you out of your mind?" Security guards began moving toward them. Daniel's voice shook, but he didn't back down. "Sir, I overheard something. There's a wiring issue. I smelled overheating. I think it could cause a fire or worse." Richard stared at him. The hallway went silent. For a moment, Richard almost brushed him off. Almost. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the fear in Daniel's eyes. Or maybe it was the way Daniel stood there, ready to be fired, but unwilling to walk away. Richard raised his hand to stop security. He turned to his assistant and said, "Call maintenance, now." 10 minutes later, the building was partially evacuated. Fire inspectors arrived. What they found was chilling. Faulty wiring above the conference room ceiling had been dangerously overheating. One spark could have caused an explosion. If Richard had walked in and closed the door, he might not have walked out. That morning, Daniel Carter saved a life. But Daniel didn't know any of that yet. He sat alone in a small security office, hands shaking, convinced he had just lost his job. All he could think about was Lily. How would he explain this to her? After what felt like forever, the door opened. Richard Hale walked in. Daniel stood up quickly. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Richard held up his hand. His voice was calm. "You don't need to apologize." Then something unexpected happened. The CEO of a billion-dollar company reached out and hugged the janitor. "You saved my life," Richard said quietly. Daniel couldn't speak. Tears filled his eyes, but he blinked them back, embarrassed. Richard pulled away and looked at him carefully. "Why did you do it?" he asked. Daniel swallowed. "Because my daughter needs her dad, and someone out there needs you too." That answer stayed with Richard. Later that day, Richard asked to learn more about Daniel. He found out about Lily, about the late nights, about how Daniel never missed a school play, even if it meant sleeping only 2 hours before work. A week later, Daniel was called into the executive office. His stomach dropped. But instead of a termination letter, Richard offered him something else. A new job. Not just a promotion, but a chance. The company would pay for Daniel to finish the education he had abandoned years ago. He would move into a safety and operations role because clearly he had an eye for protecting people. And Lily? Richard personally arranged a scholarship fund for her future education. When Daniel tried to thank him, Richard shook his head. "You reminded me of something I forgot," he said. "That kindness doesn't care about titles." The story spread through the company, then through the city. Employees began treating janitors differently. People slowed down. They made eye contact. They said thank you. And every morning, when Daniel walked Lily to school, she would smile and say, "Daddy, you're a hero." Daniel always corrected her gently. "No," he'd say, "I just chose to care." Years later, Richard would tell this story in interviews, not as a tale of danger, but as a lesson. He would say, "The most important voice in my life that day didn't come from a boardroom. It came from a man everyone ignored. Because kindness doesn't wear a suit. It doesn't come with a title. Sometimes it pushes a cleaning cart down a quiet hallway at dawn and chooses courage when no one is watching. In a world that moves too fast, this story reminds us of something simple and powerful. Every person matters. Every act of kindness counts. And sometimes, listening to the quietest voice can save a life."